My friends, welcome. This is Archangel. Of course, the junk files would not be complete without adding this little trinket of joy: circumcision. Male devaluation is reality. We devalue males in order to justify using them for utility, then discarding of them. And how can we know this? By the way we cut up helpless male infants with enthusiasm. We can observe contempt and loathing for males in the way we carve up the most sensitive and loathed part of the male anatomy. In further reference to society's abhorrence to male anatomy, and by extension, the male sex, we further damage and brand males physically and psychologically with the barbaric, yes, barbaric practice of circumcision. Nature, creator, whichever you like, put foreskin there for a reason. Primarily to keep the glands protected. When you take away this natural moisture barrier, you greatly diminish sensitivity and the degree of pleasure males may extrapolate from the sexual experience. You remove the lion's share of their sexual nerve endings. This indeed handicaps males and promotes premature ejaculation and ultimately a hollow and unfulfilling encounter for both males and females, as males rush to climax simply to feel some sort of pleasure. Meanwhile rushing by all the nuances and sensations that the theft of his foreskin has denied him. It is wholly unnecessary and simply a manifestation of our contempt and loathing of males. That's it. There are no real medical benefits to this form of mutilation, and it is not the right of the parents or doctors or anyone else to make this decision. In fact, it's not a decision at all. It's a body part of a living being. Leave it alone. Unless there existed life-threatening implications, such as the removal of the foreskin would spare a child's life somehow. If a man chooses to be circumcised later in life, that is his choice, and his alone to make. I mean, how absurd that any form of mutilation of helpless infants is even on the menu. How asinine is that? That on a whim, parents, usually bigoted mothers, have the option to carve up the tender anatomy of a newborn. I don't like earlobes much. Can we take a little off the sides on 6-hour-old Johnny? Mom has never been a fan of pinky toes. Maybe we can just clip those off of 1-day-old Ashley. What does this tell us when it is commonplace to order the carving of male infants? That it is even an option, like ordering ice cream. Would you like your Rocky Road with or without sprinkles? Ha, yeah, that's just life. Just another decision to make on a Tuesday afternoon. And the fact that we do this to males communicates intent to devalue that male. It is a mark, a brand by a misandristic society laboring under gynocentrism paradigms. You think it really doesn't harm anyone? There are growing numbers of support groups where men can voice their anger and pain or even express feelings of being unwhole. Many circumcised men have, at some point in their lives, experienced feelings of general incompleteness or of violation, which leads to emotional scars. Believe me, this barbaric violation leaves trauma upon the psyche of the male child, whether they can consciously remember the trauma and trespass or not. Regardless, the despicable violation has been registered and will affect that male for the rest of his life. So why is it still being done? I posit that it is a misandristic brand by a gynocentric society. We loathe males, and we must exercise control over them through devaluation, and we must demean them into submission so that they will be good little shovels and do what they're supposed to, then die. Still, we like to have a little BS to back up our bigotry. So we invoke a few flimsy, pathetic reasons for justifying the assaulting of helpless male infants. Chief among them is appearance. It looks better. What? Looks better? To who? As we have been discussing here and throughout the course of the junk files, the general tenor of society is, more or less, disapproving of the male member. Man junk is gross and disgusting, remember? Most people do not want to look at it, period, cut or uncut. People do not want to see it silhouetted beneath tight clothes. People find it disturbing to look at Willies in any capacity, with or without his hat. So who exactly is it being prettied up for. Hello? Females do not want to see it. Males do not want to see it. Nobody wants to see it. Nobody likes it, no matter how you dress it up. Are you kidding me? Really? Please. Do paltry aesthetic justifications make it more acceptable to the helpless infant lying there being cut by ignorant hands and a biased scalpel? Yeah. Another reason given for this savage practice is hygiene. It's cleaner, more hygienic. Oh, please. Really? You simply teach the young boy proper hygiene habits, just as you do in regards to brushing their teeth, washing their hands, or wiping their behinds after taking a poo-poo. You merely teach hygiene just as one does to young menstruating girls. Oh, whoops, sorry, I forgot. Males are bumbling morons incapable of good hygiene, or the thought processes involved with such activities. But hey, don't worry, we got that all figured out. How about we circumvent the rights of the individual male and do them a favor by removing parts of their anatomy in attempts to help keep them clean? Even though a clean male is another laughable oxymoron, because males are always dirty and smelly. Yet even still, though guys have bad breath, B.O., and clothes that can walk on their own, and armpits that have never known the love of a bar of soap, these grunting man-apes will still thank their lucky stars that they do not have the inconvenience or anxiety of having to wash that extra couple square inches of skin. Yeah, males don't have time or discipline to clean the rest of their body. So that will be one less worry. Whew. Thank goodness. Another reason given for this criminality is religion, and the religious reasons for doing this is by order of God. Yeah, so any religion that promotes a God who demands that you mutilate yourself or helpless infants in order to become more clean or holy, to prove yourself, yeah, that religious tenet is quite simply pig crap in a duffel bag. Is this the kind of God that you want to be in heaven with forever? One who plays favorites, throws temper tantrums, demands that you maim yourself in order to prove loyalty, allows you to kill others, and labels it as righteousness, who loves you unconditionally so long as you do what you're told? Yeah, good luck trying to please and walk on eggshells around this God for the rest of eternity. All reasons and justifications, or paltry, pathetic excuses rather, for circumcision are archaic and need to suffer the same fate as leaded gasoline. Some studies suggest that circumcised men are less prone to catching HIV or HPV, and thus it is increased protection for males. Great, so let's circumcise males so that they may be more promiscuous, with less worry of STD contraction. Aren't males already whorehounds by virtue of their sex? We paint males as promiscuous deviants. Yeah, great, so how about we enable their promiscuity even more? Whether that is true or not, the decision of circumcision is the choice of each individual male, when he is mentally mature enough to weigh the ramifications, not when he is a helpless newborn unable to object. Seriously, there is no reason for circumcision at all. Yet circumcision is quite telling, because this practice flourishes in areas where gynocentrism flourishes, where males and their anatomy are looked down upon and devalued, amounting to redundant fodder for doctors to add another few $100 to the hospital bill. And then, of course, people will try to divert attention away from male genital mutilation and invoke female genital mutilation, invoking the most extreme forms practiced in Africa. I was listening to a radio talk show on National Public Radio one day, and the guest was a lady from Darfur who had fled to England as a result of all the violence and bloodshed in that troubled region. As the program progressed, she began to discuss the common practice of female circumcision. As she discussed this practice, I noted how stoically and matter-of-factly she talked about her ordeal and the inevitable consequences. A caller to the show identified himself as a doctor along the East Coast, who had interacted with many African refugees coming to the U.S. to flee the horrors of conflict-ravaged homelands. He had treated many, young and old, and seen the horrors of female genital mutilation personally, and he went on to denounce female circumcision of this nature. What struck me is that he started getting choked up as he spoke, and at one point he had to pause very briefly to collect himself. No other caller showed this depth of emotion, not even the female callers. Granted, it was only an hour-long show. So here we have an American male expressing compassion and indeed defending African females. This continues to drive home the fact that the majority of males are not self-centered, uncaring, insensitive, unsympathetic, or uncompassionate. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Compassion and caring flows from males. Later, I found myself wondering, if instead I'd been listening to a show where the discussion topic was male circumcision, would there be a female caller who reacted much like this male doctor did and showed genuine emotion and outrage at this barbaric practice upon males? Or would most simply react as other females do, with nonchalance and indifference? Oh yeah, go ahead, cut 'em up. Yeah, I'm sure it would be nothing but jokes and frivolity. And why should this be so? Well, I would rather this not the case. I would rather males were not devalued and disposed of. And I would rather that circumcision were not imposed upon anyone without that person's consent. Circumcision is wrong, and this is exactly what is happening when someone circumcises an infant. It is a mutilation, a violation, a trespass. Circumcision, male or female, is disfiguring and horrific. The circumstance under which one is performed should not lessen the degree of outrage that people should feel towards this form of defacement. Whether it is performed with a knife in a hut or by a doctor with a laser or a scalpel in a hospital, genital mutilation is just that, regardless of who performs it or on what sex it is performed. And at the end of the day, it comes down to this. No matter what you think, no matter what you believe regarding this, it is not your decision to make for anyone else. It is the right of the individual to decide what happens to their body. Not the parents' right, not society's right, not the doctor's right, not religious leaders' rights. It is nobody else's right, regardless of what anyone believes. Bodily sovereignty should be a right of all beings, regardless of sex, race, creed, anything. That's where it's at. My friends, my brothers, help me spread these red pills to the world. Stand with me and live free.